Frewaka, a haunting tale of inherited trauma. If you've ever watched a horror movie that left you thinking more than it scared you, left you unsettled rather than just startled, then you'll understand why Frewaka deserves a closer look. This isn't your typical horror flick. There are no possessed dolls, no jump scares every 5 minutes, and no final girl screaming in a blood-soaked finale. Instead, what Frewaka gives us is something much deeper and far more disturbing, a slow descent into inherited trauma, cultural silence, and the parts of history we were never taught to confront. Set in a mist-covered corner of rural Ireland, Frewaka blends supernatural folklore with real-world emotional weight. It asks difficult questions about family, about identity, and about the stories we carry whether we know them or not. Through the lens of one woman's unraveling, we're pulled into a haunting mystery that's as much about memory as it is about myth. So in today's deep dive, we're breaking down everything that makes this film so quietly powerful. We'll explore the symbolism behind the red door, the unsettling rituals, and that ambiguous ending that has everyone asking, was any of it real? But more than that, we're going to look at what Frewaka is really saying beneath the horror elements. Because this isn't just a ghost story, it's a generational one. Whether you've seen the film or not, this is the kind of story that lingers. So grab a cup of something warm, settle in, and let's unravel the layers of one of the most quietly chilling films you'll see this year. Let's get into Frewaka, and why its true horror might not be supernatural at all. The mystery begins, a goat in the woods and a death in silence. The film begins with an eerie scene, a bride in 1973, freshly married, wandering into the woods only to encounter a goat. It's symbolic and jarring, a surreal moment that immediately signals we're in mythic territory. The next scene jolts us into the present, where a woman who we later learn is the mother of the protagonist dies by suicide in a lonely apartment surrounded by religious icons. This death sets the story in motion. The protagonist, Shu short for Shubun, returns to her mother's apartment and finds herself overwhelmed by a space drenched in isolation, guilt, and silence. Their relationship had been strained, and Shu's discomfort in the apartment, particularly around the Christian imagery, hints at deep-rooted unease. She quickly jumps at the chance to escape, accepting a job as a caregiver in a remote Irish village. Her partner, Mila, stays behind to handle her mother's belongings. Superstition and the locked red door. Shu's new client, Pig, is instantly unsettling. An elderly woman full of strange rituals and intense fear, Pig speaks often of them. Unknown forces, she claims, live beneath the house. Her superstitions are precise. Objects grouped in 3s or 7s, specific prayers, protective tokens. Most curious of all is a locked red door in the basement, marked with a horseshoe. The village around them is quiet, isolated, and filled with unease. Shu becomes increasingly disturbed by Pig's stories, especially as she discovers that Pig had vanished on her wedding night, only to return with unexplained trauma and a husband who would later die by suicide. As Shu unpacks documents and old photos, it becomes clear that Pig's horror story is rooted in real historical pain, perhaps referencing Ireland's institutional systems that punished immoral women. Inheritance revealed, Shu's bloodline connection. Then comes a game-changing revelation. Shu isn't just Pig's caregiver. She's her granddaughter. After Pig's mysterious return decades ago, she gave birth to a child, Shu's mother, who was placed into care and never told the truth. This hidden family history reframes the entire story. Shu's mental unraveling now mirrors the trauma that came before her, connecting generations through silence and shame. Shu, already dealing with anxiety and on medication, begins to spiral. Her grip on reality slips further as she questions everything: whether her job is real, whether the agency that hired her even exists, and whether the village itself is conspiring to trap her. The film suggests that sometimes returning home isn't about finding peace, it's about confronting everything that's been buried. Psychological breakdown, or supernatural truth. This is where Frewaka really blurs the line between psychological horror and the supernatural.
Shu stops taking her meds.
She hears whispers. She sees her dead mother. And after Pig's apparent self-sacrifice, Shu becomes completely isolated. Mila arrives to help, but Shu doesn't believe it's really her. She finds Mila's engagement ring abandoned in the car and assumes they have taken her too. Everything begins to collapse. Shu retreats to the basement. A white gown has been laid out for her, a bridal or sacrificial dress. She puts it on. She crosses through the red door and into a dark, surreal space. A figure with a horned mask waits, a symbol that could be Cernunnos, the Celtic god of nature and the underworld, or perhaps just the embodiment of inherited trauma. The ending, surrender or courage. What's happening in these final moments? Is this real or symbolic? Is Shu being taken into a supernatural realm, or is she descending fully into her mind's last defense? The film doesn't provide answers, but that's the brilliance of Frewaka. The red door might lead to an ancient underworld, or it might open into the depths of a fractured psyche. Either way, Shu's journey is about facing something unspeakable, the legacy of pain that shaped her family, shaped her mother, and now shapes her. Her final act, donning the dress, stepping into the dark, can be read as surrender. But it's also a moment of courage. Because to face what we've inherited without explanation or permission is a radical act of strength. Was it all in her head? That's the question we're left with. Was any of it real? Shu's behavior could easily be explained by a breakdown. Grief, medication withdrawal, isolation, it's a textbook case. But the horror is more potent because it's tied so closely to real cultural trauma. Even if the spirits, rituals, and gods aren't real, the pain is, the history is, the silence is. And that's what Frewaka is really about. Inheritance. The kind that lives in your bones even if no one ever told you the story. Thanks so much for watching. Stay curious, stay open to uncomfortable stories, and whatever you do, be careful when someone tells you not to open the red door. Until next time.